Well, I got follow up.
I saw there were a lot of changes to the notes over the course of the day.
Yeah, I thought you added some stuff, and I was like, okay, this stuff can wait, and so on and so forth. I'll start with like the interesting follow up. I'm just going to read the title of the article I came across, and it was from yesterday. But a judge reversed the order forcing the hospital to give ivermectin to COVID-19 patient.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw a different article than the one you had linked, but I went ahead and added the link to that one as well.
Awesome. One of the things that came out in the trial was that neither the wife or the husband, the patient, was had been vaccinated. So not a shocker there. So, but that confirms that.
And the reasoning they provided was, it made me laugh. The reasoning provided was that they felt it was experimental.
I think I've said this on the show before because I heard it said and it just resonated with me. But part of the conservative experiment or experience is living in deep irony.
That's a nice way of saying it.
It is. It's like I came across this thing and it says this guy goes. You can think of, he looked like he had a hard hat on, and he sounded like a good old boy. And he was like, "Have you ever just been at work and wanted to look at somebody and be like, fuck around and find out?" He says the way it was like the HR appropriate version of that is. Test that assumption at your earliest convenience. And so it just feels like the conservative experience is never complete without many moments in deep irony is kind of like one of those, the nice version of fuck around as whatever. I don't know what the fuck around and find out part is in what is analogous to that here, but yeah. I muddled that one.
When you were saying that, it just made me think of the meme where they're using Picard, or like a screen cap of Picard, saying "test that assumption at your leisure" or something to that effect.
Nice. So the other thing about this case was that it looked like an appeal is unlikely.
I scanned through the article that I linked, and it sounded like they had administered at least one dose. Did you read in enough detail to gather that?
I did not.
Okay, it sounds like that was mentioned, and the appeal was unlikely because the husband's condition was improving, and to them that, of course, meant that it had a positive effect.
Yeah. There's. I saw in the article that they believe that the ivermectin is the reason he's going to live.
Yeah, I'm sure there will be plenty of follow-up studies over the course of the next year or so testing that theory.
It's a waste.
True, but at the same time, it's you have to be able to disprove it at this point because too many people believe it.
I suppose. I mean, we can just let them keep going. As long as they're not endangering any children. If you're old enough and you're consenting, I mean, why are we stopping this?
The same reason that we tend to recommend you don't inject bleach.
I don't know why we're stopping that either.
Fair enough.
So another thing was, one of the things I normally I try to listen to the episode that releases right before we record, like the day, release day or the day before, the day of recording. But for episode 51, I did not get to do that. I had a little bit of follow up from that, and that is when we were talking about something. we were talking about looking at sources, and you'd mentioned Renee Ritchie talking about like something that you're perhaps an expert in. Go read 3 articles from a place about the thing you're an expert in, and then how accurate those articles are is probably how accurate that institution or outlet is with all of their articles, and that sounded like really good advice. And I while listening to it, I realized we failed to mention it's also a good idea to learn your biases. Learn what we all can suffer from confirmation bias, and it's important to learn what your main biases are and so forth.
And that does tie into a number of different times where we've mentioned that people like to reside within an echo chamber. We're talking about the same general thing when we're talking about confirmation bias. Yeah.
The other thing I saw was, now, I guess when we're going to talk about these things and I see memes in between times of recording, I'm going to bring them. I've sent you several memes, but one that I came across was really interesting. And it said, if she were to have sex with 100 different men in a year, only one full-term pregnancy can result from that. You can't, there's no way a woman can have more than one full-term pregnancy from that much activity. But if a man were to do the exact same, have sex with 100 different women in a year, that could result in a maximum of 100 full-term pregnancies.
Although improbable, it is worth emphasizing that probability means it should not be 100 unless you're talking about extremely fertile right timing across the board.
Sure.
But yes, that is, it would not be inconceivable if you were thinking along the lines of that many different partners for there to be 20 to 30 potential full-term children.
Right. But, the maximum, if everything was right, the maximum amount is 100.
Right.
The difference is nobody's legislating anything about men's bodies.
Well, it's because I don't want to necessarily derail it, but it's not about
the unborn.
No.
It's not about their lives.
Strictly about control.
Yeah. And the other thing from episode 51, I neglected to I missed opportunity when I was talking about the symptom of these are symptoms of a deeper problem. I missed this quote from When Harry Met Sally. It's one of my favorites. Harry is talking to his friend Jess at it's a Giants game. And Jess says, marriages don't break up on account of infidelity. It's just a symptom that something else is wrong. And Harry responds with, oh, really? Well, that symptom is fucking my wife. I love that. I love that line in that movie.
And it's been so long since I've watched that. I need to watch it again.
I think it's the best. I think it's the best rom-com. It's.
I don't know if I'd agree there. We might have to do a follow-up show where we talk about that.
Maybe an after show. That's the beauty of the after show. Like this little thing that we could talk about now. It's an after show thing. It's a special thing.
Yeah, that works.
So I thought after I saw the topics you put in the notes, I thought, let's talk about that stuff. Let's take a break from what we've been talking about. And I took my topic out and moved it to the next show.
I saw that. And it also is fortuitous timing with the announcement out of Apple that the September event is now scheduled. And so this is the prime window for us to record any pre-event thoughts.
I am going to go ahead and say I think this is a September event, not the September event.
We'll get to that. The other topic that we have prior kind of ties into it, I think, and is relatively short. It's just something that I've noticed increasingly over the past month or so.
Okay, tell me about it. Because I can't tell you anything about it because I don't have an Apple Watch. I confirm this. You have to have an Apple Watch to take advantage of this.
Yes, and it's because of the integration and the automatic tracking and everything else. So what we're talking about is I've revisited Apple's Fitness Plus feature app, that thing, service. Service is probably the best word. And I actually really like it now that it has expanded as far as the amount of content available. I still have a lot of gripes with certain aspects, but we're getting to that place where I can see it in its next iteration or two being able to actually legitimately compete with like Beachbody On Demand or Peloton, City Row, any of the different streaming services that are offered. And part of that stems from kind of a willingness to explore it in more detail instead of just shrugging it off after the first, playing around with it back when it launched. And part of it is also I would say a maturation of my workout regimen and kind of where I'm at versus where I was a year plus ago. So we'll start with some of the things that it does really, really well. And that is providing a very solid variety of types of workouts and durations of workouts for the workouts that they offer. And that being really your fundamentals. They've expanded a bit, so there is now a dance category. You do have HIIT workouts. I know rowing and I think cycling is an option. So there's a variety of the most commonplace stuff, I would say.
Yoga.
But recently, so that's what I was about to go into. Recently, I've been doing more of the yoga workouts from Fitness Plus and comparing that to my exposure and what's available on Beachbody specifically, because I've had a Beachbody subscription for a long time. And I've come to appreciate how much work Apple has done at providing a really solid, well-rounded yoga experience for, I'd say, beginner to intermediate level practice. I don't know. I'm not advanced enough to comment on some of the things that I find to be more advanced, how challenging those might be to someone who's been practicing for longer than I have. But from a quality and intensity and just general practice perspective, what Apple's Fitness Plus service offers is far better than what Beachbody offers for yoga specifically. And that was kind of a turning point in my head to start exploring some of the other things that are available. And so my general workout routines lately have been 3 days a week that I row, where that's just me. I'm not using any particular workout for that. That's just, I know what I want out of my time rowing. And so I do that on my own. And then at least 2 days a week, I'm doing yoga routines from Fitness Plus and adding on either a core workout or a strength training workout at the end of it. And it's been great to be able to mix and match, because I can say, let's say I do 30 minutes of yoga, I can do a 10-minute core workout and a 10-minute strength training workout to round out the day. Or I can do 45 minutes of yoga and do 20 minutes of, something else, or I can break it up however I want, right? And that kind of leads into one of my gripes about Fitness Plus. If I wasn't already knowing kind of how to put together the workouts for targeting what I wanted to target, discoverability and having like programs to follow is a really big negative still for the user experience for Fitness Plus. You pretty much have to know something that you're wanting to pursue, or you're really going to fumble through that interface. And that's where I think Beachbody has a strong leg up against Fitness Plus, because they don't do just individual workouts, so to speak. They do programs, and you follow that program for the duration of its calendar, ranging from, I think the shortest I've seen is either 4 or 5 weeks, but, let's just say a 30-day program versus a 8-week program. That kind of encompasses what Beachbody targets and what they have to offer. And then adding on to that, you can see where if Fitness Plus wants to take that next step, one of the biggest things that they need is yet further expansion on types of workouts, which leads into the discussion for the event. Because I think we're going to see a Fitness Plus update to handle at least a couple of my complaints. It just feels like it's coming, but I also don't know how much of that is wishful thinking.
Yeah.
So with all that, I want to pause. Like, any questions on Fitness Plus or any discussion points there, I think can be separate here, and then I can go into what I think is coming.
Yeah, I was gonna go into sort of what I think is coming.
Well, but before we do, one thing I want to mention is part of also why I think some of this is coming is because I've noticed in some of the newer workouts, there are some changes to what you can see on set. And I don't know how much of that is purely aesthetic versus some things coming that I'm really hoping to see. And so one of the big changes is I've seen like heavy bags hanging in the backdrop.
Oh.
And if they add on either a boxing style workout or MMA, just something that is more that type of program, or at least those types of workouts, that's a huge area that would catapult it above where I currently rank it, where I could almost exclusively focus on Fitness Plus, those workouts as a service. Because that's really the big thing that's missing for me with the types of workouts I enjoy currently.
You know, Apple, that kind of teaser is a thing that Apple does. So to see some sort of boxing style, MMA style workout coming, I would, now that because you mentioned that, I was like, oh yeah, that's a great little teaser. I hope that's what's coming. I hope that's what that means.
I've also noticed some ropes and rope ladders that could mean a number of different things, especially when you talk about agility training. Those could also be purely aesthetic. Once you have hanging bags hanging in the backdrop, you kind of need something to offset that from an aesthetic perspective as well, depending on how you arrange it and camera angles and everything else. But agility training and boxing go hand in hand. And so I'm really hopeful that that's a category that's added, since it is a category you can track on the watch. Like, you can select boxing and you can select kickboxing, both. And so those to me make logical sense for it to be a phase 2 implementation.
Yeah. I was going to say right now Apple Fitness Plus is a 1.0. And, one of the things we see them do time and time again is that when they do a 1.0 in a new market, perhaps a new offering, they don't jump head first. Like if you say, oh no, with the iPhone that was head first, I was like, no, that's a computer that you put in your pocket. They've been doing that. They've been doing iPod at that point. They'd been making iPods for 6 years. Wow, this iPod is only 6 years older. That seems so weird. Anyway, this feels like a thing where it's like, hey, we're gonna provide like a high quality, high production quality videos, limited subset of things. We're gonna get feedback. We're gonna get feedback from people, and our 2.0 next year is going to be based on a lot of those things. And I can see the 2.0 being sort of like what the iPhone 3G was to the iPhone. Like it expanded greatly in many senses. Now, hopefully they won't be like, dropping a new version of iTunes and, starting up Mobile Me on the same day, because that was a mistake. Never forget.
Yeah, that was fun.
So and iOS came out that day, a new version of at the time iPhone OS. So anyway, Yeah, I can see like a big expansion to Apple Fit. Like even when I looked at the notes when you put that in there, I was like, "Huh, interesting. I want to hear what he has to say." But now I'm like, "Oh yeah, that makes total sense. That's a very Apple thing to do."
Yeah, I think the one area that they're going to continue to struggle with, unless there's a big shift in mentality, though, is the way that the workouts are presented and the way that the catalog is sorted and filtered. It would really help to have a way to either flag a workout that you definitely enjoyed and want to come back to, like a favorites list, so to speak, or at least have something where you could tag it and then come back to those things that are tagged. Almost like a self-curation mechanism of some sort. It does, and I don't know if I just didn't see this the first time I worked with it, it does place a check mark in the bottom right corner when you're perusing the workouts for those that you've done, which is helpful at least. But as you're scrolling through, the way you filter is either by trainer, by duration, or by music. And none of those things, unless you have gotten to know the trainers, helps you to figure out what workout you want to do. And even once you've learned certain things about a trainer, that can still vary drastically on the type of workout from one to another. And we'll use yoga as an example. I could do one workout from a trainer that's a fairly energetic, fast-paced flow, and I can do another one that's far more relaxing and more focused on holding poses and stretching and lengthening. And those are two very different experiences. They're still both yoga, but I don't have a way to discern that without either having done the workout or if the description, the like 1 to 2 line description, tells me enough for me to think which way it's going to go. They do offer the option to preview the workout, but it's a 15 to 20 second clip where you may or may not get enough information to accurately gauge how that workout's going to go, depending on the length of the workout. And so that goes back to the discoverability and program kind of aspect of it that I was talking about. That's a really weak spot. Granted, with like Beachbody as a comparative, or as a comparison, you don't get that there either. But the benefit is that you're selecting a program based on the type of program. And so you have a good idea of what you're going to be faced with for that program. That makes it easier to look at a program, read a description, maybe watch the intro video, and then say, yes, I'm going to do this program because it kind of focuses on what I want to do. Following yet another comparison, the only other streaming service I have any experience with is the City Row Go service. And they don't really do a good job of explaining what you're getting out of the other workouts either. So it may just be that because Beachbody has a different model with the programs that you select versus individual workouts, that it's just that what I expect out of figuring out what the workouts are doesn't match up with what any other service offers. And that could very well be just a bias that I have because that's where I started.
Well, if what you have there is a really good tool, it's probably not just because that's where you started. I feel like, if they had a video that said, "Hey, this is how you use this service right now, and if you want to like focus on this, and like here are the features," like an orientation video. But I think that's never going to happen because that kind of thing is viewed the same way Jobs viewed the stylus for a touchscreen device. They would view that as like, oh no, we failed if we have to give you an orientation. We failed if we have to give you a stylus. So I don't expect to see something like that. I also think that they put too much cachet into their trainers. Now, I think you need to have the quality of trainers that they have. I think that's very important, because a great trainer, a great teacher, a great instructor makes all the difference on whether or not you want to do that again. It makes all the difference on how good of an experience you have in a particular class. So I don't think that it was problematic for them to get the best trainers in the industry. It's just I felt like when they introduced the service, there was a lot of cachet on this trainer and that trainer by name. And it's like, if you're not in that industry, it's like, I don't know. Most people don't know who they are. It's like, if you're not in the industry at this point, if I say Scott Forstall, do you know who I'm talking about?
Well, I'll give a good example of kind of what I mean, because yoga can be difficult. It's objective based on where you are with, what you can and can't do and everything else as well. But with the weight training, especially when you're talking about 10-minute duration, I'm looking very specifically for, I want either an upper body workout or a lower body workout, or I want to target chest, or, I have some very specific goal in mind when I'm talking about that short a duration. And even to an extent, longer durations, depending on how much exposure I have to weight training in the general, right? On the shorter time frames, it would make life a lot easier if I could say, even if I have to select a time frame first, then say focus area. Just that one additional level of filtering would help immensely, because as it stands now, I have to just start at the top and either gauge it on a thumbnail and what I see that still image providing to know whether I want to even look closer, or I have to select it and then watch the preview to get an idea for what it's going to target, assuming the 1 to 2 line sentence doesn't tell me very specifically what it's going to target. And so it took, 3-4 minutes for me to identify a chest and shoulders, like upper body workout that I wanted to give a shot for, or wanted to do, give it a shot. And I did enjoy it, but it shouldn't take me that long to find a 10-minute workout. Like that's just too high a percentage of the workout time.
Yeah.
Now, if it takes me 3-4 minutes to find a 45-minute workout, I'm more okay with that, because I already know that my time investment for the workout is pretty substantial. It's the shorter ones that really would benefit from the additional level of filtering.
Yeah. Again, I think this would be considered a failure, like a form of a failure, but like a sitemap. Like even if you went to apple.com/fitness+ and you had like a sitemap where you could build workouts, that would be awesome.
Oh, it would be great if I could.
That would be fantastic.
That's a feature I don't ever expect to see, but it would be great if I could log in and say, I want to play this workout and I want to follow it with this workout and follow it with this workout. Because if I do 3 10-minute workouts, I don't want to have to go select and choose in between each workout. I want to have it queued up and ready to go, and my watch just tracks it automatically.
You should be able to do that on your iPad. You should be able to do that on your iPhone. You should be able to do that on your Mac.
And I'm perfectly fine with it not being a web experience. I am perfectly fine with you have to use like the fitness app to do it.
Absolutely. I mean,
I actually would prefer the native experience. But that's really something I would love to see.
I said website because that's what I thought of, but now I'm just like, I want to just be more general and say you should be able to you should be able to have that kind of experience on all of the devices. Even the watch too. Like I think it'd be harder on the watch, but I think you should be able to do it on the watch, the phone, the iPad, the Mac. Did I miss anything?
I mean, if you want to try to work through Siri to do it on the HomePod,
no.
maybe.
No. I mean, that's the same as using Siri on the Apple TV. But yeah, sure, why not? Make Siri better. I think another missed opportunity, and I hope maybe they'll remedy this, I kind of see them like, it's like they might do it, but probably not, is open it up to non-Apple Watch users. And you just don't have certain things that the Apple Watch provides. I could see this being a halo service where it's like, oh, I like what I can do on Apple Fitness Plus, and I could do even more if I had a watch, and I'm going to go get a watch. So I see that being a thing that could happen, but I'm not saying like there's a 0% that will happen, but I'm not holding my breath for it.
Yeah, I don't see it likely, and not predominantly because in certain types of workouts, there will be points where it gives like a comparison for like your heart rate versus the low and the high ranges for other people who have done that workout. That's the kind of thing there's no way to get without the watch integration. Now you could drop that, sure, but it is also kind of a nice bonus to know, oh, this is really taxing for me compared to the majority of the people who have done this workout, or I'm kind of in the middle of the park, you know.
Well, what they're doing is they're saying no to all the casual users. They're saying no. So I don't have an Apple Watch. I kind of like casually want to see what Apple Fitness Plus is about. Well, I can't because I don't have an Apple Watch. And so if they had,
I get both sides of it for sure. It's just having the watch. If it were done at the expense of integration, I would say no. If it were done where the integration was the added benefit, sure, I have no concerns there. But my concern would be Apple's ability to deliver a retroactively lower featured tier without breaking that integration. And that just goes back to track record.
Yeah. I just look at it as like, you don't get this integration if you don't have the watch. You can do the video and you can exercise. It's just it's the same as a VHS.
Yeah, I get it. And I really do think it needs to have that kind of opening, or at least a subset of workouts that are strictly these you can do without a watch, just so you get a feel for what the service offers.
Yeah.
Even if it's only one or two in each category at a couple of different time frames.
I mean,
durations.
That would be enough. That's not zero. Do you want to talk about next Tuesday?
Yeah, I think so. I don't have anything else that I can think of specific to fitness. I really do just see it like the way I described it in the notes.
Yeah.
I do see it as a sleeping giant. Like it's close. It's really close. There are just some things that have to be solved before it can truly, in my mind, be viewed as a competitor to the other services.
Well, as your co-host, I sense that. As your co-host for over a year, I sensed it. That you were done with that topic.
I will give one real quick comment for anyone who does have the service and hasn't tried it. If you have an interest in yoga in general, I have found that I consistently go back to Jessica Sky as the trainer that I enjoy the practices with the most, partially because of the way she explains the different poses and the nuances, but also because she has a British accent, and I just love listening to it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Americans are suckers for any sort of British accent.
Yeah, it makes the practice just feel that much better for some reason.
I mean, I remember listening to Ozzy Osbourne. I was like, he's not a posh person, but to an American, he kind of, like me, an American, he sounds like fancy. Because he uses different words than we use that are ultimately a little bit loftier than the American dialect and also the accent. You know, it's not exotic, but it's not, it's not ours.
It's just, it has a pleasing melody to it.
Yes, it makes the American accent and dialect feel clunky. I was gonna say, quick question about Jessica Sky. Is it Jessica with a K?
No, it is Jessica.
Is it
Sky
with an E?
Kye.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I always need to know about names. So California streaming kind of scares me.
How so?
I know it's a play on the song "The Mamas and the Papas," and that's cool, but it scares me because what if this is just an Apple TV Plus event?
I don't think there's going to ever be a just Apple TV Plus event.
Other than the original?
Yeah. Was the original solely a TV Plus
It
event?
was solely that weird Apple TV Plus only event.
I do not remember.
They didn't even announce hardware for the Apple TV Puck.
No, I don't remember a TV Plus only event.
Un momento. You can put in some like cool music right here. Okay, so the Apple TV Plus event was in March of 2019, and it was the one where they announced the service, and they announced the type of service that it was going to be. So it wasn't something where they're taking on Netflix. They're just filling in a gap and creating their own content. And that was when they had Jennifer Aniston and Oprah and Steven Spielberg, and they had a bunch of people doing just like, hey, look, here's this. It was like demoed their trailers and they talked about them, and it felt like an entire event of like game demos in the middle of an iPhone event. That's what it felt like.
Yeah, but it wasn't just TV Plus. They introduced it was services only. I guess you could make the case that the Apple Card is not just a service because there's a physical card, but it was the Apple Card, Apple Arcade, TV Plus. That's all I was saying is I don't remember one that had no other content except TV Plus.
I see. Apple News Plus, Apple Card, Apple Arcade. I mean,
was it a lackluster services event? Yes.
Yeah. That's why I even forgot that those other things were mentioned at that event.
Well, I didn't remember the full details. I mean, when you told me the date, I pulled it up real quick.
Me too. Yeah. I forgot that they announced those other things, but those, I mean, it was just like
it was very much an event that felt lackluster at the time.
It still feels lackluster. I mean, the things that have come out of it are pretty cool. Like I'm not. Right. I don't want to.
The event itself was lackluster, but at the same time, like the things that were announced have had a significant enough impact that they did warrant an event. And I would rather see them grouped together than sprinkled into like WWDC and other events.
I mean, whenever you're not announcing either a brand new MacBook Pro or a brand new iPhone, it almost feels like it's going to be a letdown. And that's just like, the spoiled brats that I've become.
Well, I think I would add to that, if you don't have any hardware at all in the event, that's when it's problematic, or that's when it feels problematic, because then there's nothing to get excited about, because you can't really get excited about services in advance. You've got to see how they play out.
And like a lot of the old Apple, they would announce services like, hey, and we're, this is going to be released, in like 2 days. I know that they can't do that. They don't have the luxury of doing that anymore because they have so many users. Like Apple's where Apple is now. Like it's different than it was, when I came to love Apple. I came to love Apple, I started getting familiar with Apple after the second coming of Steve Jobs, and then I came to start loving Apple before the first iPhone. So, yeah, that's just not the world we're in anymore. That's just not they can't do that anymore. But it, like you said, like when hardware's not announced, it just feels like lackluster. Like WDC this year. It was like there was a lot of amazing things that they announced, but we're all like, where are our MacBook Pros with the system on a chip? Where are they? Like that doesn't get because we're waiting on that and it doesn't get announced. Everything felt lackluster. If those had been announced like a month before or at the conference, it would have been like, oh, amazing. But the software stuff that they showed, like some of the software that they showed at WWDC, it was really cool stuff. It was a really amazing stuff. But I do remember feeling like I was expecting more.
And I think also part of that is just there have been enough events where they've given us something that has been mind-boggling in some fashion that it's really tough not to get accustomed to expecting that out of every event.
It is. Like I said, I've become a spoiled brat when it comes to Apple events. And honestly, using the iPad as a secondary display on Mac OS and moving things back and forth there, that should have been the mind-boggling thing. But I was like, where's my MacBook Pro with the system on a chip? I want to see what that looks like. I'm not going to buy one right now, but I want it out there. I want to see it. I'm ready. Tell me.
So speaking of, do you think there's going to be any Mac-related stuff at the next event?
Nope. I think it's going to be all iPhone and Apple Watch.
Yeah. I know I added a couple of just quick bullet points. Like in summary, I do obviously expect the next iPhone. It's the normal cycle for it. It would be ridiculous not to expect it.
Yeah.
I do expect an update to the watch just because it's typically...
The watch is a companion to the phone and it can't stand alone.
Well, like sort of can stand alone now because you can do the adoption with
in an event, it can't stand alone.
Right. Yeah. So, and the watch does make the most sense with the phone event.
Right.
Just because of the complements if you're using both. And outside of that, we've already kind of talked about it. I expect the next iteration of Fitness Plus to be announced because of the expectation for the watch to be a part of the event.
I agree.
So like whatever event the watch is in, there's no reason not to tie Fitness Plus into it as well. I
think we might see the next generation of AirPods Pro and AirPods. And I think it'll be a little more cohesive. Like the AirPods that go in your ear, not the Max. I think the Pro and the Standard will be a little more cohesive in design, and I think we'll see that next week.
I kind of expect the AirPods Pro to go away.
Interesting.
I feel like it doesn't make a lot of sense to maintain 2 iterations of AirPods that go in the ear. Long term. I mean, maybe it does, but like for the differences in what you get, the technologies now being a little bit older and theoretically cheaper to manufacture at scale, it feels like it's a good time for AirPods to be AirPods. You take the form factor and the noise cancellation and everything else from the Pro, and you just make that the de facto standard, and then drop the Pro moniker.
What I don't see, so here's why I don't think that will happen, and that is sound isolation is polarizing. Some people want sound isolation, and some people do not. And I don't think.
But you can toggle it.
No, not the noise cancellation, but the actual physical isolation of a thing going into your ear. Like the AirPods now, they go. They hang on your ear, and the AirPods Pro, they go into your ear more than the AirPods. I think that is why there's 2 models will remain.
I'd say you could still achieve the same thing with just the same form factor and different tips.
Create it in such a way where you don't have to have tips at all.
Yeah, if you can and this is where I don't know if it's possible, but if you can manufacture it in a way where you have no tips and it kind of hangs on the ear, or you add a tip and it has that more of an insertion feel, whether it's for comfort, whether it's for security, regardless of how you describe it, but that different level of feeling to the way it fits in the ear, like you kind of have everything you need out of the 2.
Well, if any hardware engineers are going to figure that out, it's going to be the Apple hardware engineers. They have just done again and again. They have, like, even though if you look at all the different headphones that Apple has provided, you'd be like, they all kind of look exactly the same. But like having used all of them except for one, That's the AirPods Pro. I'm just like really impressed with what Apple has done with headphones, like with in the box headphones. Like the $29 in the box headphones are really good for $29 in the box headphones.
Yeah, I will say after having used AirPods Pro, I can't go back to the ones in the box. They just, I never had an issue with them previously from a comfort perspective, but after using the AirPods Pro, those just feel so much better to me. I have difficulty swapping to the non-AirPods Pro, just the regular AirPods, for the occasional use case that I have work-wise where I'm not deciding to use the Pros anyway.
Yeah, I think if I had, like, I'm in a place where it's like I'm probably ready to upgrade my AirPods, and I might get some. Like I'm waiting to see if there's some new ones Tuesday. I'll buy them as soon as they're available. But I think I would go AirPods Pro this time, if that's what's left. I think one of the biggest questions is there going to be a Lightning port? Is there going to be a USB-C port on the new iPhone?
I'm torn on this argument. Like I see multiple benefits to swapping to USB-C, especially with the ubiquitousness of it across the rest of the product categories. At the same time, I think we as a general public burned Apple enough swapping from the dock connector to the Lightning connector for no good reason that there's a lot of trepidation on changing it. I think the bigger question is, do we see a port, or is MagSafe expanded to the point of including data?
Well, I was going to say, I think there's Wi-Fi. Like right now, you can sync data through Wi-Fi, so I don't think you have to get it through MagSafe. And I did mean to include portless in that. Are we going to see another iPhone with Lightning? I don't think we're going to see one with USB-C. I'm afraid we're going to see one with no port.
The only reason I would say you have to figure out some level of data throughput via the MagSafe connector is because
a hardwire
you can't rely on Wi-Fi speeds all the time, because you don't know whether the home you're going into still has an old wireless, a router.
Right, but it might do it through AirDrop.
That might do the trick for their internet connection and do everything they need fine. But if you're transferring, a backup over that, you're going to be there all day.
That's going to be hurting. But I mean, I could see, like, without the existence of a good, like a certain speed Wi-Fi connection, it'll just use AirDrop.
You're still relying on some level of Wi-Fi connectivity there,
I know.
though.
Well, that's an ad hoc Wi-Fi connection between your phone and your computer. So if you live in a place where, like you have no Wi-Fi on your computer, maybe. So that might keep the port on there, and that's great. I want a Lightning port instead of no port. I don't even know if I want a USB-C port, though.
I think it's more a matter of, until you could potentially restore over Wi-Fi a bricked phone. Thinking back to if you had to do a DFU level restore.
Nice, yeah.
I don't think you can get rid of the port, or you have to figure out a different connector instead of the Lightning port.
You put it inside. You go to the Apple store, they take it in the back, they open it up.
Yeah, that's piss poor design. I'm already annoyed as hell at the original Apple TV 4K not having an ability to restore in person and having to ship that fucker off to have it restored.
Yeah, that is a problem. That's a huge problem because
it's irresponsible design.
Absolutely.
But anyway, that's a whole different tangent we can go down.
I think we'll see. I really hope and think we'll see a Lightning port on the iPhone 13.
I expect the continuation of a port for at least another couple of years, because I I think MagSafe needs a couple of iterations for them to explore what they can and can't do. And I don't mean that from what we see at a production level. I think that they're, 2-3 years ahead in design anyway.
Right.
But I don't think, I am not aware of any technologies that would allow you to create a data connection via MagSafe yet. I don't know that you ever could, but it doesn't make any sense to me that you couldn't. You just have to probably do some sort of maybe low-level wireless connectivity from a chipset built into the MagSafe connector to a dedicated chipset on the phone or something to that nature. Hey. Like I would expect it to be wireless at the end of the day.
Right. You put NFC in the MagSafe charger.
Yeah.
No.
Maybe it's that simple.
I don't think MagSafe. I don't think NFC is made for that kind of transmission.
No, I don't either. But it gets the point across that I think that we're not at a point where technologically we have an answer for that. Granted, I don't know anything about what has been on the R&D plate over the past couple of years for that, because I fully expect whatever we see was designed 2 years ago.
Right.
Like I am absolutely understanding of the fact that what's being designed is not last minute. And it's not, technologies from 3 months ago that make it into a finalized production product. So maybe next year we see a portless model testing the waters. Maybe it goes all portless, but I still think that might be a little aggressive just from a technology standpoint.
Do you think we're going to see Touch ID on this phone?
I don't see any reason to go backwards.
No, in addition to Face ID.
I don't really see it. I don't know. This is one of those where, from a security standpoint, I would love the ability to do dual factor biometric authentication. So facial plus touch for maybe things that I deem sensitive enough to require both forms of authentication. I just don't know that I see it happening, predominantly because of the advancements made in, if I have a watch and a phone and the interplay with the authentication between the two, facial recognition to some extent, plus if it can't completely verify the face using the proximity of my watch to unlock it, I really think we're going to go more toward one biometric and one associated device on my account versus dual biometric authentication.
I don't have a watch. I forget about the features of the watch.
Well, it's
no. You make it.
I think it's something that.
No, that's
I think
great.
it's something that would expand. Like the watch is the current scenario because it's the current product that makes sense. You can use the watch to unlock like the Mac as well. I think the next iteration of that though is going to be, if my Mac is in close proximity and unlocked, then I can use the Mac as that secondary device when I pick up the phone and get a partial facial rec. To me, that makes more sense as the next iteration versus dual biometric authentication. Now, do I think that at some point in the future we might see, fingerprint again without having a dedicated sensor? It's something that can be present under the display or on the side or something like that. Sure, that makes sense to me. I don't know why it's needed other than having two forms of biometric authentication, but I could see that being on the roadmap when it gets to a point of maturity. Yeah, let's go ahead and do it.
See, I was wondering if maybe we'd see it in the home button on this iPhone because they put it in the home button on the iPad Air.
I would like to see it. It just goes back to, I would love to have multiple methods for biometric authentication. Honestly, though, Face ID works so well.
Unless you're wearing a mask and don't have an Apple Watch.
There you go. I was going to say, at this point, even with a mask, it doesn't faze me.
That's the use case, though.
Yes, and it certainly makes a lot of sense to do. I really don't know if it justifies the cost. Like, how many people?
Yeah, right.
And I certainly don't have numbers, but how many people that have facial rec and don't have a watch encounter that particular friction point regularly at this point?
I think the watch solved the problem. I think, hopefully we're getting to a place where we won't be having to be masked. That didn't stop Apple from like heavily putting in quarantine related features in iOS and macOS this past year, but I think your logic is sound regarding a Touch ID.
I'm most curious about the rumored satellite connectivity with the next iteration of the phone and what it actually means.
Well, it'll be better than 5G.
I know the rumors out there as far as connectivity goes. I don't believe that there's actually an intent to make it satellite connectivity for data or phones other than maybe emergency situations.
Yeah, I think it would be a pay-for feature, like an additional pay-for feature.
I don't see it being an additional feature yet, and I'll tell you why. Satellite coverage, when you're talking about having it as your only method of connectivity, is not going to be very robust in a lot of places. Think about in the middle of an office building.
Right, but that's not where you need it.
Right. I think what makes more sense is to implement that connectivity as a fallback for emergency calling first, and it not be a paid-for feature. It just be an add-on, much like Rapid SOS was.
Yes. It's you're in the woods, and like right now. I think if I'm like, I'm thankful that I have a buddy that has he's gonna, can't remember if it's Magellan or Garmin, or it was a device called the InReach, and I think it was bought by Garmin, and it's like he can send text messages to someone. It's like however many cents per message, but like the big feature is like there's an SOS button, and if you are in trouble, you push the SOS button and people come and help. Same thing like with there's a lot of like Explorer watches that have a feature where it sends out an SOS beacon for 24 hours. If you're through satellite, if you to be saved, to be rescued. But it's for life and death.
Yeah, I'm expecting something along those lines for now.
Makes sense.
I don't know if maybe the thought is that this could be a precursor to partnerships with, let's just say, SpaceX with the Starlink service to maybe offer alternatives in the future. I think that would make sense to explore, but I think it's way too early from a technology standpoint.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
To really focus on that as a use case.
Yeah, I don't think the tech is here yet. It's just,
I know for a fact Starlink is not. I've been following it a little bit because I've thought about the potential for leveraging one of those connections as a backup internet connection. Just going into over-engineering home network as a general rule of thumb. And everything that I've read about it, it's not there yet.
Yeah, satellite is great for places where you can't get wires, but compared to wires, satellite is never the desired choice. Yeah, like people who have Dish Network and those sort of things, I'm like, really?
Yeah, at least the technology has improved over the past 20 plus years. Used to, you had a cloudy day and you would be without TV. Now it at least has to be a storm.
Yeah. Yeah. So, any other predictions, comments, concerns? hopes, desires.
I'm really hoping that we go back to a unification of features across the entire range. And what I mean by that is like with the iPhone 12, the Pro and the Pro Max had differing camera systems. And I understand why it's done. It's pretty common for there to be differences between like the Pro and the Pro Max because you have more space to work with for just sheer physics. But I really do like when if you get a Pro, you have these features, and if you get a non-Pro version, you have these features, and the way you decide is based on physical size. What physical size phone do you want? I really like when that happens, and so I'm hoping that we go back to that. There's really no reason that it has to be that way. It's just my preference because I don't like the size of the Pro Max. It's just too big. But I do like having all of the camera features because of my general interests and side activities.
Yep.
So I realize that is a bias, but I really do hope for more often than not there to be a concerted effort where the differentiator is in size phone that you want and not feature set. Maybe storage capacity.
I would have thought that the 12 line was more cohesive than the 11, simply on based on the fact that the form factor, like the 11 and the 11 Pro, the 12 and the 12 Pro were exactly the same form factor, or exactly the same size, but all of the 11s, all of the 12s. I mean to be talking about the 12s right now. Like all of the 12s had OLED displays. The 11s did not. The 11 Pros had OLED displays, and the 11 non-Pro had an LCD. So it was just, I felt like that was a bigger.
Well, but see, that's the whole point. To the 11, right? You had that feature set across the 11 range, and then the 11 Pro, you had that feature set across the 11 Pro range.
I see what you're talking about now. Whereas like now with the 12 Pro and the 12 Pro Max, there's feature disparity.
Correct.
Gotcha.
And it's all in the camera system, which of course is where I would prefer it not be. Like I would rather you have an LED display on the 12 Pro, but give me the camera system of the Max and give the Max the OLED screen than to lose that camera system.
I smell what you're stepping in.
And so that's why I know it's my personal bias that I have a specific size phone that I like, which is not the Max size phone, but I really want all the camera features every time. And so I hate when I can't get them because I just can't comfortably use the larger size phone for a year.
Yeah. Well, I had it's like I was thinking, for me, my where my values are different because I carried an 11 for a while, and I went back to a 10s. Like I went backwards, and then I went forwards with the 12 Pro. But like I felt like I preferred the 10s over the 11. For a lot of it was the display.
The 11 was a non-Pro model, correct?
Correct.
I couldn't remember for sure. I had the 11 Pro and then the 12 Pro.
So the 11 Pro was the same size as the 10s, and the 11 was slightly bigger than the 11 Pro and slightly heavier, and had a less good screen and less good cameras. They went with wide and ultra wide on the cameras on the 11. That was the first one that had the wide and ultra wide, whereas the 10s had the wide and telephoto, and then the 11 Pro had the all three.
Yeah, I do find that I don't use the ultra wide lens near as often as I use the wide and the telephoto.
I only use,
and it is so difficult calling them those things when I know better.
Yeah, I am just using Apple's marketing and pretending like it's a real thing, even though I don't know it's not. No, I mean, seriously, it's like, well, what was the Pro XDR liquid XDR mini XDR thing.
Yeah, and I couldn't even tell you anymore what the different display texts were.
Oh, there. Anyway, yeah, I find myself using the ultra wide quite a lot because of the double take app.
Yeah,
like,
that makes sense.
I'm either going to record in I'm going to pay attention to a telephoto recording or a wide recording, and then my secondary recording is ultra wide just because. Or like if the distance is far enough, I'll use the telephoto lens and then the wide lens. Just depends on the distance. But like that app is great, and you can get 2 cameras recording.
Yeah, that makes sense because most of what I do is still not off of the phone. You know, most of it is through my mirrorless or the DSLR, and so part of that is. Well, it's twofold. Part of it is I keep forgetting how good a camera I actually have with the phone a lot of times as far as video goes. And part of it is that when I'm in a place where I'm thinking about video, I tend to have the mirrorless with me anyway. And it's just so easy to slip into habitual workflows that the phone has never been my go-to grab, capture the moment kind of thing, because I've always had the camera handy. And I've been trying to shift that, not for any particular reason other than to remind myself that the phone is extremely capable as well. And so if I don't have the camera with me, trying to remember that I do still have a very high quality recording device in my pocket and being able to leverage its capabilities. That's been something that I've been trying to remind myself of continuously over the past year and a half, and trying to bring more into my workflow. I'm just not there yet.
I hear you.
I do think that will change quite a bit when the Peak Design mobile Kickstarter fulfillment occurs.
I keep checking their website for that. Feels like a wrap, though.
Yeah, I really don't know what else to think about for the event. Like at a broad level, those are the things I expect. I'm not even going to begin to guess anything on a technical level.
Yeah. At this point, I'm not even interested in guessing. I'm not I don't look at rumor sites anymore. I haven't looked at rumor sites since I've left Apple. I'm ready to be show me what you got kind of thing.
What at this point, it's more you're currently the market leader when it comes to the system on a chip anyway, like performance and everything else. Unless you slip backwards, I'm going to be pleased. I don't care anymore.
I don't see Apple slipping backwards on the chip, but I've heard people talk about how Apple has slipped backwards in the camera. Like, because arguably the camera is probably the main feature of the phone.
I would certainly say it's the most popular and most widely used, if nothing else.
Yeah, that's a better way of saying the main feature. But maybe it's not that the camera quality has slipped on the iPhone, because certainly the iPhone 12 Pro has the best camera of all iPhones ever manufactured by Apple and released. And but the ground, like how much ground they had relative to the competition, I feel has been lost.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts there, but I can summarize it pretty easily. From a hardware perspective, and therefore raw picture quality perspective, they're no longer the sole market leader, for sure.
Yes.
When it comes to final product and viewing it on the screens that most people view it on, the case could be made that they are top or flip-flop back and forth at the top spot with one or two other competitors, depending on type of photo and that kind of thing.
Right. You can find...
I think Go ahead.
No, I'm interrupting you. Go ahead.
I think the biggest issue is that there hasn't been a significant leap forward in the hardware technology on the iPhone side, and instead has been a significant reliance on the ISP, the actual image signal processor and what that does to the photo to achieve a result, which is great and phenomenal. And really, the ISP is leaps and bounds ahead of the competition, but that can't make up for a lack of quality in what's natively presented to the sensor. And so the final images from a competitor versus the iPhone can be extremely similar because of the investment in the hardware side from the competitor versus the ISP from the phone, from Apple. There is a gap, there is a disparity, and that does lead to better performance in some situations for the iPhone and better performance in some situations for the competitors. That is an area that is cause for concern, and it is an area that needs to be addressed, but it's also an area that's difficult to say that they've necessarily lost ground versus the competitors have gotten significantly better than they were, and now it's a matter of figuring out how to take it to that next level.
Yeah. You covered what I was going to rudely interrupt you with, but yeah, no, I corrected myself when I said Apple definitely has not lost ground. They have lost their lead, and that's great because people have phones that are taking great pictures, and certain category of pictures, the iPhone is not the best camera phone, and they took their foot off the pedal for hardware research and development for a little too long. And hopefully they've realized that and pushed down a little harder, and we'll see that on Tuesday.
I hope so. I that's the one area that I always want to see significant improvements in photo and video performance. In
my opinion, that is the feature that needs to be the most important feature to be vastly better than the previous feature, and along with that is the chip. But I'm not concerned about their chipsets. Nobody can touch them right now, and it doesn't look like that's going to change anytime soon. We have a number of different ways set up for you to get in touch with us to provide feedback, ask questions, or just comment in about something we've discussed.
You can hit us up on Twitter or Instagram at untitled_hosts, or shoot an email over to untitled.hosts@gmail.com.
Or get in touch directly with Jesse at jthart.com, or get in touch with me, John, via telepathy.
If you would like to support our work or are interested in listening to our new after-show feed, head over to patreon.com/theUntitledPodcast and take a look at the options we have set up.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you've enjoyed the show.
And we hope to connect with more of you as we continue this journey.
That's a wrap.